What's good, everyone? It's your boy Nazi with another video for the channel. Welcome back to DMV Sports Zone, and I'm back. We're back with the Commanders weekly live streams. It's been a while, I know, but your boy just got done with his last college finals, and we're going to get into some Commanders talk with none other than Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. Kyle, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. And if there are few people out there who don't know who you are, don't know what you're all about in terms of your content, can you give a little bit of an intro at the start?
Of course, and then congratulations on finishing your college finals. Of course, got to
Appreciate
celebrate with you here to be talk about some Commanders talk. But yeah, obviously my name's Kyle. I have the Burgundy Zone podcast. We talk about it twice a week. I'm on Twitter a lot. You'll see me on there talking a bunch of crap, getting everyone riled up, usually saying something stupid. So you can always find me on Twitter and all the social media spaces. We're always available, baby.
All right. With that being said, so I said Commanders weekly talk. Has a name? Have you gotten adjusted to the name yet? Because I know it's been about a month and some change now. Because I know for me, it kind of, I don't know if it necessarily flows off the tongue yet, but like, what are your thoughts on the name and the whole rebrand? Before we get into obviously the biggest news from the week.
Obviously, I loved it. I was one of the guys that was a big advocate for the military style name. I knew what the projection, what it could produce in the future, kind of giving this team a pedestal to live up to, essentially. And I thought that the camo jersey, that was one of my biggest selling points, is because, like, look, I know the burgundy gold is sacred. We all know that. And I love the burgundy and gold. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't. But the fact is that we were missing that kind of edge with our jerseys, so to speak. And I thought that this rebrand really showcased that by putting it on the front page, saying, look, this is what we're going to do. And having that black jersey is something that I've been clamoring for years and years. I mean, because people will talk about all day like, oh, well, black's not in your color scheme. Well, neither was white, but we still had a white jersey. You know what I mean? So I don't understand what the whole issue with that was. Because, dude, if you're talking about a night game, and Washington comes out with black jerseys, kind of gives us that edge, man. It gives us that edge for those night games. And I feel like that was something that was so sorely missed.
Yeah, and reportedly there's a fourth uniform combo that the fans will help out with, down the road. So if you guys aren't already satisfied with the three uniform combos that we have right now, I mean, just got to wait a little bit. But I'm with you. Like, the rebrand, obviously, it's been tough for all of us fans, right? Over the last couple of years, we've had three names in a year and a half, right? 2 years, and it's been tough. But at the end of the day, we got to move forward. It's already set in stone, and we got a new team right now, a new quarterback that we're about to talk to right now, or about to talk about, and that is Carson Wentz, man. Carson Wentz
on the chat.
Yeah, no. Carson Wentz trade from earlier this week was a big trade. What are your thoughts on Carson Wentz coming here to DC? Let's first break it down. Thoughts on us going after Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Jimmy Garoppolo, just basically swinging out on all those guys. What are your thoughts on that specifically?
I thought that was the right thing to do, that Washington did their due diligence. They didn't just go into it with their mindset like, oh, this is our guy and we have to go get him. I wanted to look at everybody, see possible what you can do with each of these quarterbacks. And so Jimmy G, I was not a big fan of because I view him kind of like a Donovan McNabb because Andy Reid is known for being able to produce these quarterbacks. But we didn't know that back in 2010 when we traded for Donovan McNabb. That was evident by his ability to make Kevin Kolb look good. Then Michael Vick comes in and blows the doors off, and we're stuck with Donovan McNabb. And we're like, why does this guy suck? Well, it's because the scheme makes him look good, and that's what I was concerned about with Jimmy Garoppolo. Obviously, there was a reason why San Francisco went and traded for him, but now, given what we've seen, seeing how he played in those playoff games, I was very scared about going and giving that guy $30 million. But I will give $28 million to Carson Wentz, who can stretch the field and hit you down deep. So I know that Matt Stafford was what they really wanted last season. And I think that Carson does give you a slight, he gives you an appetizer of what Stafford could do for you at quarterback. So I can understand why they went down that mindset. But with Russell Wilson, it got way too expensive. And I know a lot of fans will say, why didn't you do more? Why didn't you really go after Russell? I don't think Seattle was going to trade him in the NFC at all. They said,
Mm,
no, we're only sending you to the AFC. We don't want to see Russell Wilson come back and knock us out of the playoffs. And that I can understand. And the fact that Washington was so public about everything that they did during this time, I thought was very telling. Because the one thing you know about Rivera since he's gotten here is that he keeps everything knit. He doesn't let anything get out. He keeps it very, very tight. And the fact that they were so public with everything told me that they were invested and they were trying very hard to get it done. And that's all you can ask for, man.
yeah. It sucks that we struck out on Russell Wilson because he is from Virginia, Richmond, PA
Yep.
native. He had his draft party in DC, and it sucks. But at the end of the day, I'm just glad we didn't bring over Mitch Trubisky, bro. Like I don't know if you see my tweets over the last couple weeks, man. Like after every single person tweeted out, "Oh, let's bring over Mitch Trubisky," right? Like it would be a great fit here in DC. After every single tweet, I would comment saying, "I watched this guy in Chicago, being here in Chicago, just tear this team apart, and I do not want any parts of him here in DC." And I'm glad they did not go that route. But yeah, so we got. Go ahead.
He's not a proven passer, to your point. Yes, he is very good with his legs. He makes a lot happen. So does Taylor. But you already have that in Taylor. And obviously, Mitch is
Exactly.
taller. He's younger. He can progress. He's been learning under that Buffalo Bill system of Brian Dable and everything. And I get it. And I understand why he would still be an upgrade over Taylor. But
Yeah,
he
but
doesn't. Yes, but he doesn't do schematically to your offense what Carson Wentz does. I know, but Carson Wentz has his own negatives. We can get into that later. But I like to call Mitch Trubisky the Harry Eli, the emotionless face. And it didn't move the needle for me. And I wasn't high on Mitch Trubisky coming out of college with that 1 year of productivity at North Carolina. And so now I'm still not in that boat. I understand why they looked at him as somebody that could come in and do well. But I'm not gonna lie to you. I am happier with Carson than I am with Mitch. The only difference
yeah.
being how much money was paid to Carson and what was given up.
Exactly. And you said you were going to get into your thoughts on Carson Wentz. We're going to dive in right now. What are your thoughts on the player himself? What he brings to the table for our Washington Commanders?
First, I think we have to talk about the contract because, when I first heard the news, I was like, "No, why? Why
Yeah.
would we do that?" And then to hear the third round pick this year, and then the conditional second round pick next year, if he doesn't play 70% of the snaps, it turns into a third round pick, and then taking the $28 million contract, and then swapping second round picks. To me, it reeked of panic. Like, oh, we have to do it. We have to do it. We have to do it. And it's not that I didn't want Carson Wentz here. It was how much we gave up, and I just wanted to know why, because it definitely seemed like we did way more than we needed to. But after hearing that Pittsburgh was possibly in the mix and other teams, we had to up our offer. I'm just glad that they were able to get it done because schematically, he stretches the field. I mean, Terry McLaurin is at his best 20 yards downfield. He just runs
Yep.
past guys. His contested catch rate, obviously PFF talked about the other day, the best in the league at contested catches. And then with the Miami Brown, we saw him at the end of the last season make some really long, great catches as well. Carson Wentz is going to really test that, and he's going to hit you deep. And so he's the complete opposite of Taylor Heinicke and Alex Smith. So for the first time in Terry's career, he's actually going to have a quarterback that could throw a deep ball, and a pretty one at that. And I'm very happy about it. My biggest concern though, Nate, is his holding on to the football. In his career, he's thrown for 100. He's had 149 touchdowns, passing and rushing. But if you put in his interceptions and fumbles together, Nate, it's 110. So you have to expect that for every 3 touchdowns that he has, he's going to have 2 turnovers. And just hoping with this schedule, having one of the easiest in the league, I think this is a positive winning team, meaning 9 to 10 games. I definitely do think that they can win this season. The biggest question is keeping Carson healthy. The dude has been banged up his entire career.
Thank you for saying that last point specifically, because everybody points to last year where
He played all
I
7.
don't believe exactly. I don't think he missed any games, and even though he was dinged up before last year, wasn't the common sentiment around Carson Wentz, aside from his play, right, was he was super injury prone, right?
Yeah.
Like, wasn't everybody talking about how he can never finish seasons off? And like, I'm not even just talking about the major knee injury he sustained in his probable MVP season, right? When the Eagles were about to win the Super Bowl.
Right.
He's been pretty injury prone. So my biggest concern is that we'll be on the hook for $28 million, and we'll have a similar. I don't think we're going to get a Ryan Fitzpatrick type of situation where he plays for a half, not even a whole game, and he goes out with the season-ending injury. But I think, maybe 7 games, 8 games through the season, if Carson Wentz goes down, Taylor Heineke is going to be the starter, and we're going to have to deal with the same problems with his noodle arm once again, and that's my biggest concern.
Yeah, and Mike Hall, our co-host for the Burgundy Zone, actually put on Twitter earlier today, and it was such a great point with Washington trading for these quarterbacks. It just seems like they all get injured. Going back to RG3, obviously his injury, Alex Smith, his leg, Case Keenum got injured, Colt McCoy got injured. So there's a lot that goes like there's just so much of a sample size here, and that is concerning with the injury history. But I will say, I think Taylor Heineke is the perfect backup. That being said,
I agree.
I would love to be able to add one of these rookie quarterbacks in the draft. I know we'll get into that later, and I'll talk about my guy. I think you know all too well who my guy is. But I definitely would not be surprised if we saw Taylor play at all this season. I think that he will based on what Carson does. But that being said, dude, we had the 6th best rated offensive line in the NFL last season. My biggest concern is Carson holding on to the football too much and running? And is that going to make them look worse? And because we've seen that before with RG3, everyone in 2013 was talking about how bad this offensive line was and what we needed to do to upgrade it for RG3. Come to find out, the dude just couldn't read defenses and held the ball on too long. And that's what I'm concerned about Carson Wentz. Hopefully, Scott Turner, Ron Rivera, and these guys, Ken Zempies, the quarterback coach, they can convince Carson to hit his checkdowns more. We love your ability to hit downfield, but my man, you got to ease it up just a little bit, man.
Yeah, the issue though is if we don't re-sign J.D. McKissick, who reportedly, might not be as cheap as us fans think he's going to be this free agency period, that might limit some things because we love Antonio Gibson, but I mean, I think there was a clear upgrade when it came to catching passes out of the backfield when going from Gibson to McKissick. You agree?
Yeah, without a doubt. I just read an article earlier on Hogs Haven talking about J.D. McKissick because the guy was expecting him to get probably $3 to $4 million per year. But looking at the contracts currently, I think Tariq Cohen is probably right where you're going to be around that $5.7 million. And that's what's head scratching for the staff because obviously he ended the season with his neck injury and concussion. And I'm kind of worried about that because not only J.D. McKissick a great pass catcher, but it's his pass blocking ability. He is one of the best in the league at that. And you don't usually have that combination for a pass catching back. The fact that they're such a good pass blocker. And that's a big concern for me. Not necessarily the catching the football because of Carson, he's not going to be checking the ball down like we just talked about. So it's not that big of a need, but the pass blocking is where I am concerned with, definitely. And Jared Patterson, maybe he can contribute in that sort of breath, but he didn't instill any confidence last season as pass catching or pass blocking. That being said, but I wouldn't be surprised if they went down the route of like a James Cook or somebody in the draft. But we keep giving away our draft picks, so it's hard to see that.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And before getting to the next question, I want to get to some of the comments. So everybody's joining in saying what's up. We got Hawk TV being first in the chat. Tim Sports Talk, Carson Wentz was the best move. Okay. Patrick West, what's up, guys? Outlaw Kings. And Tim agrees with me on the Mitch take. Dave in DC as well. Let us be grateful we did not get Jimmy G. I like Wentz. So let's go get Garrett Wilson or Jameson Williams. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the stream, but I kind of agree with you there. Uptown Dre, yo comrade, Snowy AM stream. Solid Carson move. No dead cap hit next year, which I think we both like. And we did get a 7th at the very end.
And the one thing about the 28 mil is I've been speculating as to maybe they have an agreement in place and be able to restructure because Carson has he was on the Philadelphia Eagles. He got moved to the Colts and now he's on the Commanders, right? So 3 different teams in 3 years. I think Carson doesn't want to be on a 4th team in a 4th year next season. And so I think it'd be in Carson's best interest to say, yeah, look, I'll accept the trade. I'll go with you guys. We'll restructure the contract. I'll get less money this year, but it'd give me another year to be with you guys and more of a cap hit, but not a 0 anymore. And I think that would be much more plausible because that opens up space to be able to re-sign Terry. I'm not sure if Washington's going to be making any moves in free agency until Terry McLaurin is re-signed.
Yeah, that's a fair take. And so back to the Carson Wentz situation, though. I don't know if you got a chance to watch the video, my first video back last night, but the title of it was Wentz Ron's last chance, and I said right now. Do you think Carson Wentz is going to be a 1-year rental here in DC? Or do you think he could potentially be more than that and might be a long-term solution that we've been clamoring for several decades now?
Yeah, I think that he would not. I'm not going to say long term, but I'm going to say more
Okay.
than just a 1-year rental. Because yes, Taylor Heineke is your perfect backup, but if you could have Carson Wentz as your backup behind a rookie or whatever have you, you're probably in a better situation at that point. And I don't mean any disrespect to Taylor or Carson by saying that, but it would make sense for this staff to be able to say, yeah, this is a proven vet. We can make sure if he comes in the game, obviously he can lead this team somewhat. So I do think it'd be one more than 1-year rental because I've said speculated a lot that if Ron doesn't draft a quarterback this year, next year is the route that he's going to go, because in that 4th year, that's when he can say to Dan, look what this rookie quarterback is doing. Maybe we should talk about a contract extension because we're doing pretty well. And that's where I kind of view how they're going to do this thing, because especially next year's quarterback class, it's heavy, man, and it's deep too. And I don't think there's going to be as many teams as we think that's going to be voting for a quarterback at that point.
Outlaw Kings, we'll get to this a little bit later, the Bobby Wagner possibility of him being here in DC. But I did mention, so I mentioned the Ron Rivera video as well, because my thoughts on the whole one situation is Ron Rivera has had 2 straight 7-win seasons. If he has another 7-8-win season this year, am I wrong in thinking that he's definitely going to be on the hot seat? Like he might not even last his full 5 years that he's been saying, give me 5 years and we'll see what we got. Like, am I right in thinking that?
I don't think that he'd probably be on the hot seat just because Dan Snyder is not a very reasonable person, right? Like anyone that knows that's been around this area that knows kind of people that have worked for Dan, he's not reasonable. He's a tyrant. And but that being said, Ron Rivera is his safety blanket at the moment, because nobody is really attacking this franchise to the length that they would be if Ron Rivera wasn't here, because of what Ron Rivera is doing in the building. So at the moment, Dan Snyder's hiding behind Ron Rivera, what Rivera is doing with the organization, changing everything around. Last thing he wants to do is start stoking that fire, because then the NFL is going to turn right back onto him. But I do agree with you that it would heat up a little bit, especially with the media here, the fan base saying, look, another negative win season. We can't be sitting around doing that. But I will give them the benefit of saying that they had a very tough schedule last year, and they had poor timing last season. Very poor timing.
I get that, but to push back, we're talking about this upcoming season, right? Where they have projected 32nd weakest, easiest schedule in all of football. So if they get to only 7 or 8 wins in Ron Rivera's 3rd season,
that is a very good point. That is a very good point. I was just arguing that I don't see them having a negative win season with that schedule. I do think that they will win positive this season based on how they played, and especially late in that season when nobody really gave them a chance going against the Bucs and other stuff. They know they can win. And the quarterback position definitely did set them back a little bit this season. Yeah. But I think the defense, it was like a poor timing, right? Because they bring in Landon, and Landon is not looking good the first couple games. Neither was William Jackson III. As Landon's getting back together, he's starting to play really well. Chase Young gets hurt. Then after Chase Young gets hurt, Montez Sweat gets hurt. And it's like it seemed like always something was going on with the defense where they kept having to adjust and they couldn't get right. So if the defense stays healthy, I think this team can win way more than 7 games, especially given the strength of schedule. But to your point, if they don't win positive with that strength of schedule, that would be very, very hot for this organization, especially for Rivera. I know that he'd be feeling it himself. I know that he wouldn't be happy. I'm sure that he'd be talking about people's jobs are at stake and trading John Allen and other stuff like that.
Scott Turner. Scott Turner. At the very least. But
Jack Del Rio.
Jack Del Rio as well. In the middle of all this defensive turbulence, this defensive turmoil, I should say, throughout the season, though, I think a lot of what get lost in last season is that Kendall Fuller, he was, I think, the 5th best cornerback, according to PFF last year. Yep. So he didn't start off that great, but he ended up playing very strong. So if we get that type of play out of Kendall Fuller, and then William Jackson being back,
and Benjamin St. Juice,
Benjamin St. Juice, after those concussions last year, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. But speaking of defense, we had another piece of news that broke from earlier this week that Landon Collins is expected to be released from the team. Yeah. And let's think big picture right now. Or okay, so first off, thoughts on the release, and do you think it's a good move for us?
I don't think it's a good move per se. Financially, it makes a lot of sense. And
Okay.
I don't think Landon Collins is the bad guy in this situation. I don't think any of us would, because he said, yes, I'll take the pay cut to be able to make things work. They traded for Carson Wentz, and they come back again, and they're like, hey, can you take more off? And he's like, look, man, I already did it once. I'm not doing it again. And I can
Mm,
understand that. But from a scheme standpoint, it was kind of a thorn in our backside because we're trying to fit him into this piece. And where he fits was like the outside linebacker, kind of that Buffalo nickel kind of person. And linebackers can typically play that. And Jamin Davis being moved to outside, Cole Holcomb being an outside linebacker, it was like we had a lot there. And the money that was attributed to that didn't make sense. And so in that breath, I can understand why they pulled the trigger and being able to let go of Landon, because at the beginning of last season, we were all kind of saying they need to let go of Landon to be able to relieve that money, right? Because we weren't getting much production out of him. And he understood
mm,
that. He was realistic about it. But he did play well this season. I thought that he could have played his way into staying with this team this year if he took a cap hit, if he took the money off. But obviously that was too much. And best of luck to him, man. I really do like Landon and what he brought to this team, the tenacity and leadership, especially because I think the biggest negative with losing Landon is his relationship with Cam Curl.
yeah, yeah.
It's not very often that you'll have a young player take an older player's job and then they're actually very, very good friends. I think that speaks a lot about Landon and how he kept that group together. So that's probably going to be the biggest gripe for me is Cam Curl's friendship being taken.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth on that last point. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway. He really took Cam Curl under his wing and helped him out, helped us see the greatness that is Cam Curl, and do got to credit him for that. But there were spurts of great play out of Landon Collins over his tenure in DC, but unfortunately, how I will remember him outside of the Cam Curl stuff is another big money guy that we brought here to DC that Dave Gettleman let go, and that us fans, not just here in DC, but nationally, thought Dave Gettleman was terrible for doing, right? Was like, those were idiotic moves. He ended up being right with Josh Norman and Landon Collins, and we pay the consequences of that. But like you said, like, I'm grateful for his time here in DC, but we got Cam Curl at our strong safety spot. We just got to get that free safety spot solved, man, because it's been way too long.
Yeah, and I like Bobby Mccain and like the three safety tandem that they had there. And obviously, Bobby Mccain is a free agent. We still don't know what's going to go down at free safety. They drafted Derek Forrest last season. Can he come in and contribute right away? Safety is a big question at this moment. I think it's one that needs to be answered. I'm not sure if free agency is going to be where they do it at.
And David DC brings up an interesting point here about Collins. So with him leaving, do you think Davis will step up and play sort of that linebacker role that Landon Collins ended up playing, even though he did not like playing it towards the end of the season?
Yeah, I think they play a little bit different positions. We have Orange Crush, one of our biggest contributors to the show, asked us during the season, at the end of the season, was where do you think Jamin Davis could fit to kind of help him besides middle linebacker? And I thought the strong side linebacker, where you're close to the line of scrimmage, because Jamin didn't have a natural feel and instincts for run gaps, for clogging lanes, for setting the edge. And if you put him at the strong side, Sam linebacker spot where he's on the line, like next to Montez Sweat or Chase Young, where he's creating that edge and stopping it, you could start to create those instincts and more of a feel for how things are supposed to go. And that's where I feel Jamin excels the most, because at that Sam spot, you can also have him lined up as a quarterback spy or on the running back if he runs out the backfield. And we've seen that Jamin is very flexible with his hips, so he can run with these guys, and he's very, very fast. And so I like him in that mindset. I would rather go through the draft in trying to replace Landon. And what I mean by that, there's a lot of capable safeties here, and even a linebacker that I have in mind that could replace Landon, and Brian Asamoah from Oklahoma, 6 foot, 225. He plays middle linebacker for them, but he reminds me of Landon with his body style, and he's so tenacious in the way that he plays and sets edges. Like, he runs full speed at the left tackle just to set the edge to force the running back inside. He just has that natural instincts that Jamin doesn't. And obviously, you can't play middle linebacker in the pros just because he's only 6 foot and he gets eaten alive by those big dudes. So keeping him clean is the best thing possible. So I think Brian Asamoah from Oklahoma is like a replica of Landon Collins.
Okay. Already giving us your great draft insight before we no. That's great. But yeah, there's definitely some options in the draft, even some options in free agency that we'll get to a little bit later. But yeah, again, thankful for his time here, and who knows, he might have some suitors in free agency. Maybe he might just go a little bit up the road to Baltimore. Who knows? Who knows?
That would
But
make a lot of sense, man. It really would.
yeah, so we'll see. But back to our team, what free agents do you think Washington should retain from this team?
Definitely J.D. McKissick. Hopefully he takes a hometown discount. I know that Ron Rivera and him are very good friends. We interviewed Michael Phillips a couple weeks ago, and he talked about they were soul brothers, Ron Rivera and J.D. McKissick. And basically what he said, J.D., is, look, we can't offer you exactly the amount that you're asking for. So go test free agency and then come back and let us know what they're offering, and we'll see if we can match it or not. And I really hope that JD does come back. I think that he fits well with this team. His job and his role in his team is very easy. It's very simple, and he does a very good job at that. And then,
And Kyle, sorry to cut you off, but we actually unlocked his potential right here in DC because he played for the Lions, he played for the Seahawks, but he was nowhere near as good of a player until he came here to DC. You got to give him credit, but like, you got to give our coaching staff credit too for helping him.
You're absolutely right, and I think Taylor Heinicke has a lot to do with that, because Taylor obviously was checking the ball down a lot to J.D. McKissick, giving him the ball out in space, allowing him to maneuver around defenders and showcasing his ability, and obviously he did that very, very well. We saw that at the Atlanta Falcons game, that game-winning touchdown, which was ridiculous. I still see that in the back of my mind. But the other one
even Alex Smith too, as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And then the other guy is Tim Settle. A lot of the beat guys that I've been talking to think Tim Settle's good as gone, that he wants to get paid. He wants to be a starter somewhere else, which kills me, because if you look at this defensive line group, you're getting older, especially in the fact that Jonathan Allen getting paid already with his extension, Daron Payne needing getting a contract extension next season, and then Matt Ioannidis as well. I would rather be able to get draft capital in return. I'm in the boat where I would rather be able to ship out Daron Payne for maybe a second or third rounder and then re-sign Tim Settle for an extension and then possibly do some of Matt Ioannidis after next season. Because the one thing I'm concerned about is allowing this young, productive, and doesn't have a lot of mileage on the tires at all, because he doesn't play that much, but he is very productive. Letting him go, him being a star and baller for somebody else, we give a contract extension to Daron Payne, and now we're stuck with somebody who's injury prone and with that big contract. And that's what I'm concerned about, is that Tim Settle will cost just a little bit less than Daron Payne. It's going to suck to see Tim Settle walk, dude.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. J. McKissick is definitely the guy that is most realistic, and we definitely got to bring over we got to retain, because just last year, 2020, he had the second most catches out of any running back in the NFL, only behind Alvin Kamara, who
I'm pretty sure 2 seasons ago, I think he was like top 10 in receptions in the entire league.
It's crazy. It's crazy, man. He's a definitely a weapon for our offense, and we saw once he was injured and he was no longer playing, the impact that had on our offense, man. We could not get things moving whatsoever. So I definitely agree with you that he should be our number one get. And we also have you said Tim Settle, but we also have a DeAndre Carter as well, who I'll say this. At the very beginning of the season, it was a sure thing that we had to re-sign him after the season, right? But things started to tail off towards the end. But I thought he was still a good returner for us and a solid depth piece at wide receiver who's not going to cost that much. So might as well bring him back. And then you got Bobby McCain, who I think that 4 interception number is very much fool's gold, because he had 2 of those interceptions against the Giants that last week of the season.
Yeah.
And a lot of us were roasting his coverage abilities throughout the season.
It was funny that because that week there was rumors going around that they were going to extend Bobby McCain, and everyone was like, "Why would you extend Bobby McCain?" And then he gets 2 picks that week.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I definitely think we can upgrade there at free safety. But
DeAndre Carter was
that's
a good
my thoughts
plug by you.
Yeah. Yep. DeAndre Carter. So I don't know. Do you? I'm going to say this here. You probably heard me say this, Kyle, on Twitter and elsewhere, but I'm a Brandon Sheriff guy, and I think he brings a tenacity to our offensive line that we're going to miss. I think we take for granted, and I know he's been injury prone, but at the same time, when he is on the field, our run game is something else. And we saw that, last couple of weeks with Antonio Gibson going off. and finding huge holes to run through. And we've seen that over the last couple of seasons. But I think the ship has definitely sailed even before Wentz, but definitely now with Wentz, with the money, the type of money that we're already dishing out for him. There's no chance, right?
There's no chance, but I do agree with that. We do kind of take it for granted what Brandon does because there was a losing record halfway through the season. Brandon was injured, and I remember after on the bye week, I had wrote an article for the burgundyzone.com, and in it I talked about what we needed to do to get back to winning. And what I talked about is the ground and pound strategy, and getting Brandon Sheriff and Sam Cosby back would really help with that. And that's immediately what happened. When they came back, we were able to run the ball effectively. We beat the Buccaneers, obviously, go on a 4-game winning streak. That being said, I think it's very telling that your most expensive lineman is a right guard. And I think that is the reality of the situation. You do have to weigh the options out, right? And obviously, I think Brandon Sheriff kind of put a line in the sand. He kind of told them last season what he was thinking about doing, and that ship has sailed. He's a country boy. I don't think he likes this area. I think he wants to go back probably more west to the central U.S. and to be able to go hunting whenever he wants and everything like that. And I really do appreciate everything Brandon did because he dealt with a lot of crap coming to this team. Even when he got drafted, everyone was frying it up. Oh, we drafted a guard, you know.
Even the coach, Jake Gruden, he was like,
we drafted a guard.
Yeah. So no, I agree with you, man. We take him for granted, man. We take him for granted, and hopefully our offensive line could be solid next year because Carson Wentz, I believe he had 20 touchdowns and 5 picks when he wasn't under pressure. So hopefully he won't be under too much pressure this upcoming season. But now we're getting into the other free agents that will likely be available come Monday. And we're getting to, I believe it was Outlaw King's point. Yeah, a question about Bobby Wagner. What free agents do you think Washington will be interested in, potentially will even sign, and what free agents do you believe Washington should actually sign? Like, who are you guys in this free agency period?
I got you. I know that one name has been surfacing that Washington was intrigued by was J.C. Jackson from the Chargers, but the Chargers I think have a lot of money right now in cap space, and I didn't think that they were going to re-sign Mike Williams because the one thing about the Chargers is they never keep their wide receivers. They let them walk. You know, Vincent Jackson. You can go down the list. They just let these guys walk, and I was surprised by that. And so when now seeing it, J.C. Jackson is probably going to stay. But with Bobby Wagner, to your point, Outlaw King, I don't think that we have a chance. Obviously, it would be a great get. I mean, the guy has started 16 games the last 3 seasons. He doesn't miss anything. He always averages over like 120 tackles, is constantly getting sacks and pass deflections. He really is your all-around linebacker. He's 31 years old, very big dude, hefty, and he would be a perfect fit for this defense. I just think that Dan Quinn and Dallas are going to do everything they can to be able to bring him in there, which is, I'm not going to say petrifying, but it is concerning. And I bank on our guys being able to whoop their butt. But that being said, that is an asset that they're getting, and it sucks because I do think he's probably going to go to Dallas. I don't think that we have a chance. That being said, I think Jordan Hicks is the guy that we have to target. He's 6'1", 236 pounds, 29 years old. Started 17 games last season, 103 tackles, 4 sacks, and 5 pass deflections. That's even with having Zaven Collins and having Isaiah Simmons as linebackers that the Cardinals drafted the past 2 seasons. The guy is highly productive. I wanted us to trade for him mid-season last year because I thought that we really needed the help at middle linebacker. No disrespect to Jamin Davis. I definitely think he can progress into one. But at the moment, right then, we needed a middle linebacker. And I thought Jordan Hicks could help with that. I'm just concerned with Jordan Hicks being able to come up with the money to get him. Because you look at somebody like the Packers with Devondre Campbell, they're trying to find money to bring him back. And that's where I'm kind of concerned because, we talked about J.D. McKissick. We talked about DeAndre Carter. But that money's going to slowly start evaporating because of Carson Wentz. And so are you going to have enough to be able to contend for Jordan Hicks and these other guys? Or are you going to have to kind of settle for one of the Denver Bronco linebackers that are coming out, which nobody really knows their names? I can't even think of them off the top of my head right now. But there's guys out there that are productive middle linebackers that you could go get. But if I'm going to look at it, I think middle linebackers probably where they're going to go free agency. If they go offensive line, I think Mike Daniels, the right guard from the Bears, I think Charles Leno would probably have a lot to say about bringing him here. He would be cheap, pennies compared to what Sheriff would be requesting in free agency. And he's probably I'm not going to say as productive, but similar production and probably would stay healthy way more than Sheriff would. And what a troll that would be for Washington to go get a right guard in free agency for less money, and he plays more than Sheriff does. I think that would be
And from the Bears. And it seems like we have a connection with the Bears, man. We got Cornelius Lucas, who played pretty solid for us at left tackle. We have obviously Charles Leno, who played solid enough to get a new contract with us. I mean, it seems like a good fit.
Yeah, and I see Uptown Dre's comment here about the free agent inside linebackers, Devondre Campbell, obviously with the Packers. I think he's going to resign back there. I think he was very happy with his home there. They're going to retain him. He had a Snapchat the other day saying that he was back in Green Bay with like the eyes saying, look out, what's going on. He's going to resign. But Foy Olukun, I think he is a great player that's going to be tested free agent. I think he's like 24 years old, incredibly productive. I think he over like 130 tackles last season for the Falcons. Matt Ryan just did a restructure of his contract. And so I'm wondering if maybe the Falcons are going to be using that restructured money to bring back Foy. But I would love to be able to have Foy onto this defense. Really inserting a middle linebacker here that's a vet, I think is the absolute perfect scenario for this defense to really get them up to speed. Rookie is a gamble, but I would love for that to happen as well. But a vet is like the perfect situation you'd want in middle linebacker.
Okay. And back to your first point about JC Jackson. So, man, would we go back to back off seasons with a big money cornerback here in DC with obviously Kendall Fuller and then William Jackson the third and then JC Jackson? That's a lot of money tied up to the quarterback position. I don't know. I know he's a stud. Obviously, he's a stud, and he played for the Maryland Terps, so he is a sort of hometown product here. But
food for thought, because sorry, Nate, but the one quote that I always think about whenever these acquisitions are brought up, Ron Rivera talked about Andy Reid taught him you have to be able to contend with your division. That's your number one goal, is be able to beat your division. And with these wide receivers that we have in the division, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Smith, you got Kenny Galladay in New York, big, tall, talented wide receivers. You're going to need to have lockdown corners. And it's unfortunate that William Jackson III proved last season not a lockdown corner. He's zone coverage. And so if JC Jackson is your guy that can shadow your number one wide receiver, I think that would really help this defense being able to beat the division just to be able to get us in the playoffs. And so I think JC Jackson, that corner spot, really does speak a lot to what Ron Rivera has been preaching ever since he got here and beating the division.
Hawk TV. Ertz, I've heard a lot about this over the last couple of days. You think there could potentially be a reunion between Carson Wentz and Zach Ertz?
I'm sure it's possible. And I've seen a lot of people like Mark Tyler from Hogs Haven has been talking a lot about Ertz. He was one of the first ones to talk about Wentz. Credit to him. But with Ertz, I think John Bates deserves the opportunity. I think that he was thrusted into limelight last season with injuries to Ricky Seals-Jones, to Logan Thomas. He was thrusted in there as a rookie and did well. I think the last thing that you want to do right now is sign Zach Ertz and say, all right, you have the job over John Bates. I think John Bates has done enough to earn that opportunity. And Ron Rivera is that kind of head coach. He doesn't want to just throw money at somebody to replace guys here. He wants to grow the flowers and he wants to let them blossom. And so I would much rather go down that path. So I think Sammis Reyes, I'm not sure if you've seen his workout videos or pictures in the offseason. The dude is looking gigantic, even bigger than he was before. And I think he's somebody that could really contribute as a third tight end coming off the bench there. And just as a blocker and then being able to be athletic. John Bates is not somebody that's going to really extend you in the passing game, but he's solid and productive. And just like we were talking about with these free agents, how much money is Zach Ertz going to command? And is that going to take away from being able to re-sign DeAndre Carter, J.D. McKissick, or get a guy like Mike Daniels in free agency? And that's what I'm concerned about with Zach Ertz.
Yeah, and I mean he had a pretty solid season last year with Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. So
yeah, I had him on my fantasy squad.
Yeah, definitely not going to be cheap. But no, I said Kyle when you mentioned the Sammis Reyes workout stuff because I don't know if you know this, but I don't fall for the workout stuff, bro. I mean, whether it be a quarterback, a defensive end, a tight end, doesn't matter what position, doesn't matter the player. I'm all about what I see on the field. And Sammis Reyes, I mean, I'm rooting for him. It's not like I'm not rooting for him, but I definitely think we have better options at tight end already on the roster, and there are better options out there that we could potentially get, like a Zach Ertz or maybe potentially draft a guy. But just going through the comments right now, they're coming fast and furious. Tim Sports Talk mentioning our O-line, Flowers and West are the starters. But do you think the team had the intention of making Schweitzer a 17-game starter or 16-game when they signed him, 16, 17-game starter for this team? I think they looked at him more as a backup. Am I wrong in that?
No, I'm right. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that they like Schweitzer as a starter, but they love him as a backup because he can be moved all over the line. He can play center, left guard, right guard, kind of that Swiss Army knife. And I think that's where Wes Schweitzer fits the most because, yes, he is good, but he's not like that big, bulky guy. He can get pushed around just a little bit, and he's gained my respect without a doubt. But I think you're absolutely right about that. They love him as a backup, and they like him as a starter.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned the possibility of Bobby Wagner going to Dallas, and you said, we'll still whip their tail. I don't know, man. This Michael Parsons, Bobby Wagner, Trevon Diggs, potentially in his third year, having an even better year than he had last year.
So I got into a lot of fights with people this year because they talked about how Michael Parsons was a Pro Bowl linebacker. He's not a Pro Bowl linebacker. If he was a Pro Bowl linebacker, they wouldn't be looking to acquire Bobby Wagner. He is a Pro Bowl pass rusher. And I wholeheartedly agree with you. I understand. I know that Cowboys defense would be looking a lot better. I'm not scared of them. I'm not scared of Mike McCarthy. I think that they are single-handedly blowing themselves up right now with the Lyle Collins is seeking a trade at the moment. Dak Prescott kind of falling off the end of the last season, everything that happened there. They're letting some guys go and some talented dudes go. And so they're not going to be the same. And I trust this team, man. Even going against them with some crappy performances, the Dallas game was probably the nail in the coffin for Taylor Heineke for me. Like, that was it. When we went down by the 50 burger, I was, all right, man, you can't start in this league. You can't do that for me.
Yeah. I will say, though,
it depresses me.
No, it's all good, man. Those two games were atrocious, especially after the two great games that we had against Dallas two seasons ago in 2020, where we whipped their tail. But I will say this, though, with the Cowboys, potentially one of those guys that they might let go might end up here in Amari Cooper. Do you think that could be a possibility? Terry, Amari, Curtis?
I hope not, because that's taking money out of Terry. I think that's the last thing the message that you want to say to Terry McLaurin is we're going to give all this money to this dude who hasn't played a dime, hasn't done anything for you, where Terry has been playing with backup quarterbacks his entire career, still getting 1,000 yards receiving, being one of the most productive guys. And then you go sign a big free agent to bring in here when he's looking for money. I think that's a really, really bad look. And so I'd much rather give that money to Terry over Amari. I thought 2 seasons ago was the time to go after Amari. If the Cowboys are walking away from Amari at this point for that $20 million price tag, I think that says a lot. And he's on the downswing of things. And we've seen time and time again of us bring in free agents like Curtis Samuel and nothing comes about it. And Amari would be more expensive than Curtis. And that's the only thing that's concerning to me.
Yeah. Going off of Amari, though, I think the guy that we didn't even mention yet, who I think is by far my favorite guy out of this free agent class that could be here in DC, like in terms of fit, in terms of quality of player, is Marcus Williams, free safety for the Saints. I know he's going to be expensive. I get it. But he is my favorite guy by far. I know everybody remembers the catch Stephon Diggs, the DMV native had against him, and I get that. But, bro, what a way to bounce back after that play. He's been absolutely terrific for the New Orleans Saints at free safety since then. He's been one of the best safeties in all of football since then, and he's elite. He's super young. I think he's only, 25, 26 years old.
Yep.
And he would, in my opinion, solve our free safety spot that we haven't had solved in a long, long time.
I know that the Saints just restructured Marshawn Lattimore's contract. And so maybe they're opening up money for Marcus Williams, to your point, because obviously he's a proven commodity. I think everyone in the league would want to be able to bring him in and throw money at him. Did you hear the Bears have like over 120 million in cap space?
Yeah, with the Khalil Mack trade.
This is ridiculous, man. But going off topic, but the fact is, I think the Saints might be able to swing something there. I'm not sure if Marcus Williams would want to leave NOLA, but if he does, dude, I would love to be able to bring him in here and add to this defense because, like, that's an immediate impact. I mean, you could slide him in there and you know he's going to be productive.
Yeah, I don't get Jairus' take right here. Marcus Williams would be awful. Why would he be awful? Is it because we would already have a lot of cap money tied up to the secondary? Is that why? I mean, we already talked about JC Jackson, but like Marcus Williams, in my opinion, would solve a position, right, in free safety, right? We already have two pretty solid corners, at least projected to be solid corners this upcoming season. So I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah, and I know you guys want the safety, dude, but I've been having this insane theory about Troy Anderson from Montana State. If we were to draft him, the kid is 6'4", 242 pounds. He runs a 4.42, has a 36-inch vertical, 128 broad jump. He played quarterback as a freshman, as a running style quarterback, was absolutely killing it in the FCS, and then was a running back as well, and then transitions to linebacker in his last 2 seasons and blows the doors off. He's a legend for the Montana State fans. And the reason why I look at it with him with that is he's always the fastest guy on the field. He's a mammoth. He's gigantic. So was Sean Taylor. Sean Taylor was fast. He was long strides. If Troy Anderson doesn't transition as a linebacker to the pros, given the fact he's only been a linebacker for 2 seasons, I think he could play free safety. Given his size, given his speed, sitting at 6'3" or 6'4", 242 pounds, he runs a 4.42. He has all the range. He has all the instincts, a great tackler. He hits really hard, and he's a playmaker. If you put him in the back end of your defense with Cam Crow in front of you coming up and making those plays in the run game, I think that would be a crazy thing to add. I like to call him the white Sean Taylor. I think that I know it's insane. Not that many people will say that. A lot of scouts around the league will probably laugh at it and say, "Yeah, that guy's an idiot." I am. But I think that that's something that could definitely happen given his skill set. Kind of reminds me of Brian Urlacher, who came into the league as a safety and then transitioned to a linebacker.
Okay. I think a lot of Bears fans here would definitely perk up with the name or the recollection of Brian Urlacher and his days here in Chicago. But if we could bring a player like that to DC, that would be amazing for sure.
And Ron Rivera was the DC in Chicago, and Brian Urlacher was the middle linebacker there, running that cover 2 with him and Lance Briggs. I like to think of Jamin Davis as a Lance Briggs. I know we all want to kind of make him look like a Ray Lewis type, but I think that Jamin might actually be that Lance Briggs, where he plays outside linebacker, but then towards the end of his career is where he transitions into the middle linebacker once his speed starts to fall off a little bit. But that's just how I view Jamin.
Okay. And on to the draft. Who do you like Washington targeting at number 11 overall in the first round?
So if we're sticking at 11, and if a cornerback is there by Ahmad Gardner, I think that's who you got to pull the trigger on. Sitting at 6'3", he's a long-armed. He comes up, plays press man a lot, and he hasn't allowed a touchdown in 3 seasons as a corner. Obviously, he's playing at Cincinnati, not going against the top-tier competition, but he still went against some very, very good guys. And so I think Ahmad Gardner, going against your division, to Ron Rivera's quotes, I think that's the perfect ad right there because that's the best bang for your buck. But if they trade back, I think Jameson Williams is the guy I really want to get.
Thank you.
And the reason why I know he's coming off of his ACL, but we've heard from Dr. James Andrews that he doesn't expect that his injury is going to derail his speed or anything like that. Because when you watch Jameson Williams' film, he has a burst out of his breaks. And when he's deep downfield, there's no DB that can keep up with him. He has hands for days, diving for catches, contested catches, jumping for the ball. He can do it all. And given that we have Carson Wentz now with that deep ball, I think that Jameson Williams is the perfect wide receiver to add as the number 2 with Terry McLaurin and then allow Curtis Samuel to work the underneath, kind of that Deebo Samuel type of wide receiver. I thought Treylon Burks was probably a really good prospect to be able to have there, sitting at 6'3", 225 pounds out of Arkansas. He didn't test out that well at the combine, but I thought that he would have been a good wide receiver for Taylor because he can do short, middle, and long game. And so he can kind of help with that, getting the screen passes and everything. But if you're having Carson here with that strong arm and that ability to hit downfield, I think Jameson Williams is the guy you really want to target that 11th pick if they trade back.
Yeah, I mean, man, you're great minds think alike, I guess. But no, you got the great draft insight. I'm just a spectator in this because I think Jameson Williams would be an absolute home run selection for us in the first round. I'm with you though. I think we'd probably have to trade back because at number 11 overall off a torn ACL in the championship game, right?
Yeah.
In the championship game, last game of the season. that might be a little too much, but I'm with you, man. Jameson Williams,
Yeah.
I'm a Bama fan. I got to watch him play for my favorite college football team outside of this area, and he was spectacular. Him alongside Terry McLaurin and a healthy Curtis Samuel, hopefully, fingers crossed. Scary, man. Scary.
Now, I like it a lot because, like, the reason why I want them to trade back, I know because Hall will yell at me. He's like, dude, I want a top 15 pick. I want to add talent to this offense. I'm like, look, I get it. But I wanted them to trade back before the Carson Wentz trade because you have to look at it at this point. They have a first, they have a second, a fourth, a sixth, and 2 sevenths. So you're now missing a bulk of that middle of the rounds, right? And they actually do pretty well there, generally speaking, of being able to get some production out of those guys like John Bates, for example. So they do really well in that aspect. And so I want them to trade back in order to gain some more of those picks. And it makes things a lot simpler because if you do any mock draft for the Draft Network, you do it from PFN. If you do those mocks, when you come to 11, you're almost stuck in like a no man's zone. No man's land. You're like, where do I go here? There's a bunch of tackles. There nose tackles. There's a bunch of offensive tackles. But do we need those guys right there at 11? And that's why I would love to trade back if one of those quarterbacks are available. Like maybe Pittsburgh loses out on Deshaun Watson and they want to have Malik Willis at 11. Come on, man. Come trade with us. We'll go to 22 and we'll take Jameson Williams. But if they miss out a wide receiver in the first round, Nate, I think Sky Moore is a name that you should pay attention to. Western Michigan guy, absolutely incredible,
Speedster, right?
Speedster, but he has like 10-inch hands. He has really big hands, and he does all 3 levels of the game. He can take your screens, he can make guys miss, he can separate out of his breaks, he can do the middle stuff, go across the middle. He can also do deep with great route running. And so if you're kind of talking about somebody who can be there in the second round, I think Sky Moore or George Pickens out of Georgia is somebody you could really look at and say that could be a production to this offense.
Yeah. I mean, David DC, there's a lot of like for Jameson Williams here in the chat. Go get Jameson Williams, man. Scary Terry, Curtis Samuel, Jameson Williams for Carson Wentz, man, who's a guy who likes to throw it deep, who likes to stretch the field. Woo! And we saw, I didn't even mention this earlier when you were talking about Terry McLaurin and his fit with Carson Wentz. In my opinion, I don't know if this is a hot take. The best Terry McLaurin that we've seen was rookie Terry McLaurin, in my opinion. A guy that, we actually allowed to stretch the field, and he wasn't just a possession receiver like he's become over the last couple of years.
I know what you're saying. Dwayne Haskins actually had an arm and could hit the deep downfield, and that's
but even Case Keenum, remember against the Eagles, Terry McLaurin could have had over 200 yards if Case Keenum, the second pass, was a little bit more on target, but I don't know. That would be a great trio.
I think you're absolutely right about that. Terry has never played with a quarterback of this caliber to the point of the deep downfield accuracy. Obviously, Dwayne had a cannon. He wasn't the kind of passer Carson is, let's be honest. And so I think Terry has to be happy with this because I am petrified of the fact of Terry leaving here because Jamal Tellett, everyone knows him. He talked about yesterday that Terry could possibly be franchise tagged at the end of next season. And I was like, no, dude, that's the beginning of the end. We've seen that with everybody at this organization gets franchise tagged. That's 1 foot out the door. And if that happens, dude, I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah, me too. And Drake London, you have thoughts on him potentially being with us at 11, or even a Garrett Wilson? Chris Olave was probably be too high for him, but any of the other guys at receiver?
Yeah, Garrett Wilson, 6 foot, 188 pounds. Last season had 70 receptions, over 1,000 yards receiving, 12 touchdowns, and average 15 yards per catch. But he had a 4.38, 36-inch vertical, and a 23-inch broad jump. I kind of looked at him as kind of like a Robert Woods type of guy where he can do everything for you. He's not a barn burner. He's not going to be a Tyreek Hill type of guy, but he's got great hands. He has great footwork and being able to run his routes and create separation in the intermediate to mid range. And he would be an asset here. And obviously, I think Terry McLaurin would absolutely love to be able to bring over another Ohio State guy. Chris Olave, I kind of view as like that kind of speedster. He has a burst out of his breaks that's really, really impressive. But he kind of rounded as a route runner and everything like that. Not as good as Garrett Wilson in that breath. But Drake London, I think everyone made fun of me, but I kind of look at him as like a Josh Doxson, sitting at 6'5", 210 pounds, 88 receptions, 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, and average 12.3 yards per catch. What kind of tells you it's more like the jump ball kind of wide receiver, but he does take a lot of wide receiver screens and does well with it, but he's not a quick agility kind of guy. He's more of a jump ball. It's got really tough, strong hands. But just to put it in perspective, you guys, so Drake London averaged 12.3 yards per catch. Treylon Burks averaged 16.7 yards per catch. Garrett Wilson, 15.1. Chris Olave, 14.4. Jameson Williams, 19.9. 19.9 per catch. If you're talking about Carson Wentz and being able to stretch the field for 70 yards downfield, Jameson Williams is the guy you want.
I'll admit, even as a Bama fan, you did have Bryce Young, which obviously does help things. But no, Jameson Williams, I'm with you, man. I'm totally with you. Special talent. And I know he had sustained that major knee injury, but if we could get him in the first round, maybe trade back, that would be amazing. But
yeah, if he's healthy, dude, I don't think he gets out of the top 10. And that's where I'm kind of thinking, because I want to make sure his medical checks out. Because if he's that type of cat that could come in and be that Adrian Peterson type guy after an ACL, because ACLs aren't looked at the same way as they were before, if he still has that speed coming out of his breaks, I think the 11th would be justified to be able to take Jameson.
Okay. And the last guy that I'll ask you about in terms of the first round, well, two guys. Nicoby Dean, who is a linebacker. We need a linebacker. He was a stud for Georgia, championship-winning Georgia team. And another guy who I don't know, I'm not hearing too much buzz about, in Derek Stingley Jr. I read a Bleacher Report article, I think this was before his freshman year at LSU, talking about how this guy will be the next great cornerback to come to the NFL after his college career is over with, and he has all the tools, all the talent. His college career did not necessarily pan out the way that I don't think anybody thought it would. But what are your thoughts on those two guys potentially coming here to DC?
So Stingley did really well in his freshman year. Everyone will talk about what he did, like to Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, his freshman year, going against them in practice. But the last two seasons have not looked good, and he's fallen back in that breadth. And so that's why he's still considered a top half of the first round. But if you talk to these scouts and experts, Stingley's falling. And I think Booth is kind of taking him over. Booth is coming from Clemson, one of the most athletic cornerbacks on the ball, defenders. And so with Stingley, I'm not as high on, but Nicoby Dean, kind of that smaller size, he's a natural leader, thumper. You could say he's going to get the most out of you, but he is undersized. If I'm looking at that middle linebacker spot in the draft, in that first round in particular, I'm looking at a guy like Devin Lloyd, the linebacker from Utah. He is all over the field. The guy is very, very fast. He even lines up at rusher at times and is lightning quick, very strong all over the field. And looking at the injury history with Montez Sweat and Chase Young, I would like to have a linebacker here that's versatile, that can do multiple things, can rush at times from the linebacker spot. And I think Devin Lloyd is the perfect kind of guy to add to that. But I'd be surprised if they take middle linebacker in the first round. I'm not going to scream and cry like everyone else, but I would like it. And with Nicoby, we talked to Logan Paulson a couple weeks ago, and watching his tape, he felt that Jordan Davis and those other defensive tackles made Nicoby Dean's job very easy in being able to keep him clean from blockers. And so he was concerned that maybe we don't get to see the true Nicoby Dean, because when he gets to the pros, he's not going to have that luxury anymore. And that was one concern for him.
If he comes here to DC, he might have that luxury, though. I mean,
but Logan brought up Jamin Davis at Kentucky, and how that's what happened to Jamin Davis, that they kept him clean. And then so he comes here last season, and that wasn't the case, right? And so
that's completely fair. And so moving off the first round, though, so before getting your thoughts on the rest of the round, second, third round, later rounds, and your thoughts on who we should get, there's a lot of talk in the chat about guys that we should potentially go after. Kirby Joseph, free safety. There is the several wide receivers that we potentially go after, maybe even after the first round. Kristen Watson. Yep. And I know you mentioned Troy Anderson, Brandon Osamoah as well earlier in the stream. What are your thoughts about us, doing something great, in the later rounds? Like, what guys should we bring here to DC?
One guy whose name is getting a lot of traction around the league, and I'm not sure he was going to make it to like the fourth or whatever, is like Chad Mumma, the linebacker from Wyoming, 6'3", 239 pounds. He has 10-inch hands. He got big hands. He ran a 4.63, probably one of the slower of the linebackers, but he led in the bench, had 27 reps on the bench at 225, had a 40-inch vertical, which is one of the tops of the linebackers, then a 29-inch broad jump, which is more than Troy Anderson with a 128, which goes to show, but he kind of reminds me of a Logan Wilson. If you guys know who Logan Wilson is, a middle linebacker from Cincinnati, the Bengals. He came from Wyoming as well. He's a liability in the pass game, lined up one-on-one, but if you're looking for that prototype middle linebacker, Mike linebacker is going to call your plays, get guys in position, come up, make tackles in the hole. Chad Mumma is your guy. And he does do well in zone coverage and everything like that, but make no mistake, he is a mismatch if you line him up against a wide receiver or a running back in the flat and the outside. He's going to get eaten alive just because his hips and his feet are not as quick as his head is.
Okay. How about safety Daxton Hill out of Michigan? I heard some talk about him potentially being a draft pick for us.
Yeah, Daxton Hill, somebody I've been hearing a lot about. Hall, our co-host, is a big fan of Michigan, and the guy can do whatever. And I know that Nick Cross, the safety from Maryland, is another cat that's been brought up. But Daxton Hill can do everything. He can come up, make tackles. He can cover. He does a great job in a deep third. And I think that's something they could very well be eyeing in the second round or something like that. If they're not able to re-sign Bobby Mccain or do something at the safety position, to your point with like Marcus Williams, if they can't do something like that, I could definitely see them going down that route. I like them a lot. Kirby Joseph was a name that is intriguing because he's one of those guys that measured out really well, but isn't getting a lot of buzz. Joshua Williams too at a Fayetteville State, the HBCU cat. He's making a name for himself as a cornerback, sitting at like 6'3", running a 4.42, I think it was. So there's a lot of guys in these back ends. I know defensive back is very depth heavy in this draft. And so if you're looking to add somebody there, you're going to be able to get some quality talent in that second, possibly fourth round.
Yeah, you gotta love the HBCU guys getting some buzz. But I don't want to keep you too much longer because I know your time is limited and I am very appreciative of it on this stream today. But the second to last question I'll ask you is big picture question about this team. How does this team stack up right now in the NFC East? What is the overall state of the franchise? Do you think we're moving in the right direction? What are your thoughts on all of those things?
Man, you got to hit me with a hard question last, don't you, Nate?
Yeah.
This team is trending in the right direction. I know this is a very hard situation for the fan base because we're not used to it. We're used to Dan Snyder having his yes man in here and pulling the trigger for big name free agents. It gets us excited for the season. We think things are turning around. Rivera is a fresh breath of air because he knows how to actually build a winner. So I know that people are getting angry about Jamin Davis and some of these guys they brought in missing out on Russell Wilson and everything, but they're building the best team possible. I know not many people will respect that and understand that. And look, you're a fan. I get it too. I'm an idiot. I get a lot of things wrong as well. They're heading in the right direction. They're actually building a sustainable product here in DC. I know it sucks at the moment, but you're going to see the actual fruition of the garden being planted very, very soon. We just got to be patient and understand that there are growing pains when you're, especially with a young team. And when you have crazy circumstances happen to you, like COVID, like a car accident and other stuff like cancer, things are going to slow down just a little bit, but you have to trust the process. And a lot of people make fun of that. But what else are we going to lean on? Usually Dan Snyder's the one pulling the trigger. He's usually the one calling the shots. For the first time ever, we have actual knowledgeable football people making plays here. And all we want to do is complain about each and every decision they make. It's annoying. Let them do their job. They're actually doing a good job with it because we're all just Dan Snyder's at the end of the day. Dan Snyder, if he had his way, I'm sure he would go get Aaron Rodgers. I'm sure he would go get Deshaun Watson and other stuff like that. Ron Rivera is being smart in the way that he's doing things. So you just got to take a step back and understand that this is a winner being made. I think they make the playoffs this year, Nate, and I think that they actually win a playoff game.
Okay. I mean, I said this before, and I'll say it again. If this team does not get to at least 9 wins, man, I'm sorry. Like, you'll hear it. You're hearing it from me on March 12th, 2022, right here. You guys can timestamp it. If you do not win 9 games, it's a failure of a season. And I think as someone who's been a huge supporter of Ron Rivera, even through the tough times, even when we were 2-6 last year, even when, we started off really slow the year before that, I was one of those guys who was like, you know what? I still believe in Ron Rivera. I think he's going to right the ship. And he ultimately, did. Last season, a little bit less so because we had the tail end of the season that did not end off too well. But I'm still a huge supporter of him. Obviously, everybody supports his character. But I was a supporter of him as a coach. And if he does not get us to 9 wins this season, man, I'm sorry. It's going to be hard for me to come on here and say, Ron Rivera is my guy. He's the head coach here for the future. He's going to be here for the future. It's going to be hard for me to say that. And I think maybe the people in the chat might agree with me on that. But
I definitely agree with you in that breath. And I understand because it sucks to say that because given the strength of schedule this year, if they do not win 9 games, I totally understand it. And I thought I'm right there with you because I said before this season, if they don't make the playoffs, it's a failure because you're building on what you have done. And the first year, obviously, yes, you could talk about all the injuries and how easy it was. Regardless, they got into the playoffs. That's your pedestal now. That's what you have to reach. And they took a step back. And yes, were there some outlying variables to it? Talking about the difficulty of schedule and the injuries and stuff. Yeah. But guess what? Times are changing in DC. This is our goal now. We have to get to the playoffs every year or it's a bad situation. It's a failure of a season. I wholeheartedly agree with you, Nate.
Yeah. And the last question
that's a good sign, by the way.
Yeah. The last question I want to ask you, though, is not even a Commanders question. It's not a Wizards question, not an Ass question, not a Cavs question. It's about March Madness because it is March. It's crazy times right now all in the world. But when it comes to college basketball, it's about to start. And what are your thoughts on the Hokies, man? Because I know you're a huge Virginia Tech Hokies fan.
Repping, baby. Repping.
Yes. And, the Hokies might be the only big-time team, I should say, from the DMV that's in the tournament. And it sucks for me to say because I'm a huge Hoyas fan, even repping the sweatshirt here. And they've been, oh, my gosh, got off this season. But what are your thoughts on the Hokies? My guy, Abdullah, another content creator on this channel, he goes to Virginia Tech. Thoughts on them in the tournament? Do you think they could show some things?
Yeah, I definitely do. Obviously, repping for the DMV, my Hokies.
Yes.
Let's go Hokie High. Those are my dudes. They've done really well. They're playing in Duke tonight at 8:30 in the championship for the ACC. They can actually make some waves in the March Madness. I would be surprised if they don't make the Sweet 16. But Lord knows, how March Madness is. Nobody can predict it. It's just one of those things. It's like picking the lottery. You just can't figure it out, man. But I'm glad that our Hokies are repping this area. It sucks that Maryland has fallen off as far as they have because the one thing they always hung their hat on was basketball. Ralph Region, that football program, they did pretty well. Things fell off, and you're like, yeah, but they got basketball. They don't even have basketball anymore, man. And that sucks. And then Georgetown, that's such a crappy situation as well, brother.
With Ewing, man,
this
legendary player turned coach.
And it sucks because you want a former player to be a good coach in usual cases, but not everyone can do it. I mean, look at Michael Jordan, one of the best player ever to play the game of basketball, and he's not a coach because I think he knows I don't want to deal with it. And I think that's what Ewing is kind of figuring out.
Kyle, can you say that again? Michael Jordan is what? So my guy Abdullah can hear. Sorry.
Michael Jordan is the best basketball player of all time. I will say LeBron's
on his heels.
LeBron James is the best athlete to play basketball ever. I will say that there is a very big difference there.
Okay. Yeah, even UVA. What happened to UVA?
Yeah,
they won a championship my first year in college, and now they just
who? I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you're gonna have a DMV team in the tournament, I mean, at least over the last 10 years, it usually is UVA, and even they're not in the tournament, which is kind of mind-boggling.
What a weird year for the DMV, especially with its basketball, dude. It doesn't happen, dude. That's saying the SEC doesn't have anybody in the championship series and for football. You know what I mean? That's
crazy.
Weird.
It's crazy. And I mean, if you want to talk about the rest of the DMV, I mean, the Caps are struggling. I mean, the Wizards, they're always struggling, but the Nats, they're rebuilding now. I mean, and then you got the Commanders. So hopefully the Commanders can come through and give us a winning season next year and a playoff season, hopefully. But Kyle, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Everybody clap it up in the chat. Thank you so much, Kyle.
Thank you for
joining
bringing me
us.
on here, man. It was an honor. It was a lot of fun to do on the Saturday morning, brother. Got to be able to pass some time. And, I love talking Commanders ball. And I'll do nothing. I'll love to be able to support you, brother. Following your dreams. And I'm all about it, dude. I love talking Commanders football. And I know you do as well. So I'm very honored to be able to come on here again, Nate. You're a man.
Appreciate that, bro. And I'm gonna come up. I'm gonna try to put another comment on here because I do not want to end the stream like that. Krista Watson. Oh, another guy. Yeah. But again, thank you so much, Kyle, for joining me, and for everybody in the chat. Go ahead.
I can't believe I forgot Kristen Watts. I didn't write any of his info down, but his measurables of the combine was absolutely ridiculous. I think he's like 6'4", ran like a 4.38, and then had like I think a 40-inch vertical, if I'm not mistaken. So the dude is absolutely explosive. He shows it on tape too at North Dakota State. So if you haven't already, go watch Kristen Watson's film. The dude is explosive.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. Up to Andre. I mean, we got some comments at the end, but yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the DMV Sports Zone channel. We like to post fire content like this as much as possible. Also, go follow our Twitter page at DMV Sports Zone, Instagram page, all lowercase DMV Sports Zone, and our brand new TikTok that Abdul is running right now, DMV Sports Zone as well. And also, I made sure to link, Kyle, your YouTube link in the description for all those people who haven't subbed already, which might be just a few, right? Because I think everybody loves your content, loves your insight. But yeah, with that being said, guys, have a great rest of your Saturday, great weekend, and see you on the next one. Peace.
All right, everybody. Thanks, Nate. You're the